Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Zone to Speak podcast. I'm your host, Juliana. Before the episode, I have got to share one of my absolute favorite ride essentials, the Cyc Plus Smart Pump. This little thing goes everywhere with me. It's compact, powerful, and honestly a game changer on the bike. I love using it mid-ride when switching between terrains. I can drop the pressure for gravel and then pump it back up when I hit the road. Super easy, super fast. And of course, it's a total lifesaver in case of a flat or any loss of air. No stress, no hand pumping. Just press the button and go. You can grab yours with 10% off using my code ZONE2SPEAK. Link and details are in the episode notes. Trust me, once you try it, you won't leave for a ride without it. Cyc Plus Smart Pump. Smart, simple, and ready for any adventure. Now, let's hear it for the episode. Today on Zone to Speak, I am joined by someone who embodies what it means to live boldly on two wheels, Petra Wiltshire. If you are in the world of gravel or downhill or mountain bike, you already know her name. Petra is a multidisciplined rider and a 3-time world champion with 3 rainbow jerseys to her name. She rides with passion, humility, and an adventurous fire that makes her story impossible not to be inspired by. Her life spans from mountain bike racing, world-class gravel performance, and everything in between. She's an ambassador for Reilly Titanium bikes, Strada Handbuilt Wheels, POC Sports, and Panaracer. But above all, she's an ambassador for a life lived outdoors, in motion, and with heart. Today, I will dive into the chapter of her cycling journey, the highs of world championship racing, and what keeps her pushing forward after decades in the sport. Let's get into it. Petra, welcome to Zone to Speak.
Thank you, Juliana. It's great to catch up with you again.
Yeah, lovely to have you here. Finally, we've been talking about having you on the podcast for a long time. So I'm glad our schedules finally synced up.
Absolutely. It's like yourself, I'm always here, there and everywhere, one country or another, or riding the bike. I never have any time.
Yeah, you are. So your career spans decades and disciplines, from downhill to gravel to adventure riding. So for many listeners, it's inspiring to see someone move through so many eras of the sport with the same intensity and joy. But every cycling story starts somewhere. How did your cycling journey begin? And at what point did you realize you were building toward becoming a world champion?
Well, it definitely didn't start on two wheels. I was lucky. My family were all sports people to start with, or sportsmen and women to start with. I grew up in England in the countryside. I was lucky enough to live in Somerset or close to my family's farms. Both grandparents were farmers. And from cousins to parents, aunts and uncles, they were all sports people, particularly my parents. My mum was a professional horse rider. She competed internationally in show jumping and eventing, and my father was a motor racing driver, so I guess there were wheels there somewhere, and obviously riding a bike, riding a horse, the similarities started there, I suppose.
Yeah
So I was a hyperactive child, like many sports people as children. My parents just occupied me every hour of the day to keep me out of trouble, really. If I wasn't riding a pony or driving cars on the farm or playing sport at school, I played athletics, I swam, I did gymnastics. I was competitive in everything I did, whether it be board games with my sister, with my parents. The whole family were competitive, and we even had competitions to see who would do the washing up. So,
wow.
It was inevitable. Yeah. So
it's in your blood.
Well, it was in my blood, and I was lucky that my parents were really supportive. And I I mean, I did athletics. I did gymnastics to a sort of reasonably high level, and athletics I represented sort of junior international level. But it was hockey that really was my sport all the way through my teens. I was ultra competitive, and I was lucky I had a great hockey coach at school. And I played junior international hockey up until I was 18. And
Wow.
and that's really, the sport I wanted to be in. I'd seen hockey had been accepted into the Olympics, and it was my sort of dream to go to the Barcelona Olympics in '92. So at university, I played hockey as much as I could, much to the disappointment of my lecturers and probably my studies in my first year. But I wanted to get into the Great Britain squad for Barcelona, um, so it meant a lot of training, a lot of travelling. But unfortunately, I snapped my ACL just before Barcelona, so that really
Oh no.
So that sort of scuppered my my Olympic bid, if you like, unfortunately. But I suppose the saving grace was my rehabilitation was cycling to strengthen up the knee again, and
Wow.
that's really how I got into bicycles. I mean, I did carry on playing hockey. I was playing National League and playing European clubs, but I'd started cycling really as a result of hockey, and loved it. Once I jumped on a bicycle, I mean, I'd ridden a bicycle as kids, but I didn't know anything about cycle racing, certainly didn't know anything about mountain biking. But I bought a bike, and with hockey, I had to do strength and conditioning. And I was working in London, and I joined a strength and conditioning club, which was actually a cycling club, Thames Tradesmen in London. And that's how I started cycling. They invited me away to some mountain bike events, and I went along and did some cross country racing, and that's really where it started.
Wow, interesting. There are a few people actually that started falling in love with bikes because of the same reasons as you, because of an injury, and then they started doing some rehabilitation and really enjoyed. Even some football players, I mean, they didn't get a rainbow jersey like you, but they started really enjoying the sport. And
Yeah,
when did that rehabilitation turn into passion, and then it turned into, of course, you have the competitive bug in yourself, and then maybe you
yeah.
missed that Olympics, and then that when you saw like, okay, I'm actually good at this, I'm gonna go all the way.
Yeah, I think I love speed. I mean, I think I've inherited that from my parents. And as soon as I jumped on a bike, I got that sort of feeling of independence, which you don't get in team sports.
Yeah.
And I like the thrill. I like the buzz of it, really, particularly mountain biking, which was what I had a mountain bike, and I went to a cross country race. And ironically, there was a downhill on the Sunday, so I did the cross country on the Saturday, and I saw the downhill race and thought I could do that on the Sunday. Had no idea what it involved. I just got told you start at the top, and the fastest time was the winner. So I did a downhill on the Sunday. And while we were waiting at the finish, I mean, I'd crashed lots of times, but there weren't many women in it. And a guy came up to me in the sort of paddock area and said, "Oh, I recognise you from hockey." He was the England or the Great Britain goalkeeper at the Seoul Olympics. We'd won the gold medal, Ian Taylor, and he was working for Giant Bikes. And he came across to me and said, "We need a woman racer. Do you fancy riding downhill for us?" And that's how it started. So
First event, you already got sponsored by Giant.
yeah, so I literally within weeks, Giant had sorted out some kits. They needed a female rider. But mountain biking in those days was quite new, and certainly downhill. Um, I had a bike arrive, and it was baptism of fire, I suppose. I went from a local race to national points to World Cups in my first season.
And then you started racing downhill, which is super raw, fearless, demanding physically and mentally. I mean, I would not try. It requires a lot of ability to push past limits. Um, what were those early downhill years like for you, and what did the winning world titles teach you about yourself as an athlete?
I think, if I'm brutally honest, it was frigging terrifying to start with. I didn't know what I'd let myself in for, to be honest. I, in those days, I mean, we're talking a long time ago, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't videos you could watch to see what something looked like. I went to the races, and, everybody had body armor and big helmets. And it took me a little while to really feel like I was part of it. And I think the first time I actually felt like I was really, really going to be okay at it was when I went to my first World Cup. Because the tracks overseas are so much better than anything we had ridden or I had ridden in the UK. The UK, you have a 1 minute downhill, you push your bike to the top. And as soon as I got out to the continent, we have chair lifts and you're taken to the top.
Yeah,
One of the most beautifully manicured tracks. It's so different.
yeah. And how about the training? Like, were you going overseas a lot to train as well? Because how do you prepare for that if the others are training in much better conditions than what you have in the UK?
I That was one thing I sort of identified really early on. I mean, living in the UK, you could never train really for downhill. I mean, I went to the gym because I realised the bikes were so heavy. I needed to be able to be able to lift them up when I fell off, or push it to the top of the hill. So I was doing quite a lot of weight training. But other than that, I was still playing a little bit of hockey. So I was staying relatively fit, but not necessarily cycling fit. So I actually realised that I'd always wanted to go out to the Alps, and I knew I could do a winter season out there because I had my ski teacher's qualification. So I thought the best way to actually have a summer out there riding in those that environment and training in that environment was to work a winter season in the Alps and then tie on the summer season while I was out there, and that's what I did. And I ended up living in Switzerland and France for 20 years, purely teaching
Wow.
skiing in the winter and then guiding mountain bikes and racing in the summer. And it was the perfect place for me. I was in Morzine, which is really in those days was the sort of center of mountain biking. You had a ski resort that were ahead of their time. They realized they could make a summer, a living in the summer as a resort with having mountain bike tracks and chairlifts running and getting mountain bikers using the
Yeah, I
facility.
think Morzine still will.
Yeah, so I
Yeah, I
worked
think
out
Morzine still is a great destination, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I lived in Morzine for 8 years, and then I moved over to Champery on the Swiss side for 12 years. And Champery is famous for its World Cup track. It's very, very steep. It's one of the steepest tracks, and it was literally behind my house. So I couldn't have a better training, um,
Yeah.
backyard really to ride super technical trails. And also, there were so many World Cup riders living there. I could, have a lunchtime and go and session on the Plenny and ride countless downhill runs with some of the best riders in the world. And I learned a lot. I'd have never got to the level I got to unless I'd moved out to the Alps.
And was it during this time that you're living in the Alps that you got your rainbow jerseys? Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, well, you've got to remember, I started riding when I was relatively old. I mean, people coming into downhill racing and cross country now are sort of 16, 17 when they start. I started when I was 25. So I was late to the party. So I was racing Pro Elite World Cups and European Championships and National Championships and Elite World Championships. And I won the Masters World Champs in the first one I think was in Bromont in Canada. Then I went back and raced World Cups for a few years. Then I won one in Praloop in France, and then the last one in Brazil, which you would know well. Baleia de Cambrio, yeah.
Did you win one of your jerseys in Brazil?
Yes, I did it. Baleia de Cambrio, yeah.
Wow, how cool.
My,
Love that.
my favourite track ever. It was amazing.
Really?
Oh, beautiful. where can you ride down a mountain and finish on a beach and then have a cocktail at the end?
You had to be Brazil. Uh,
Absolutely amazing place. Yeah.
love it.
And
Yeah,
then I
and we
then
met.
I retired.
You also had a chapter in Dubai. That's where we met. What brought you there? I mean, I remember that's when I started doing some gravel races,
Yeah.
and they weren't really gravel races. They were just mountain bike races, but they opened for gravel. And some of the races were really, really hard terrain, and I would sit out. And I remember you going, and I'm like, whoa, so much respect. And you went on a gravel bike.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it was a bit of a strange one. I'd been after Brexit stopped me working in the Alps. I went traveling for a year and then COVID hit.
Okay.
I went back to the UK and I worked for GCN for about 12 months. My commute to GCN was on a gravel bike. I lived in the country and I used to ride into the GCN sort of studios, offices. Um, and the roads were so bad that I bought a gravel bike purely for the commute. And then I finished when GCN started laying people off. I took a contract, a 6-month contract in Dubai to help develop some mountain bike tracks. And that's, I think, when I met you. Um, but I, at that
Yeah.
time, didn't have a mountain bike to take out with me. So I thought, well, I'll just take my gravel bike with some mountain bike tires on it, some 650B mountain bike wheels. And I used that for everything, riding on the road, riding gravel. And then I decided I'd do the mountain bike series on it.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I
Good old
loved it
times.
there. I love that if anybody ever wants to go and have some stunning riding on the smoothest trails you'll ever ride, certainly if you're riding a road bike, yeah, the Emirates are stunning for that. Yeah, Abu Dhabi and Dubai and all around, absolutely brilliant.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, a lot of people think that it's just glamorous dining and partying, but the nature and the cycling are
Mm.
also top.
I wasn't living in Dubai. I was living out in the one of the little Emirates in the mountains, and it's like chalk and cheese. It's so far removed from what you see of Dubai. This is basic living in the mountains. I was living with Indian and Pakistani workers who were making chapatis on the floor and absolutely loved it. It was the best 6 months. It really was. I met so many great people out there and even did some road races. And so, yeah.
And how did you transition to gravel, like a total new playground from downhill? Like many riders shift disciplines, but the leap from downhill to gravel is a big one. What drew you into gravel riding, and how did that transition reshape the way you see cycling and your own
Yeah,
abilities?
it's interesting. When I first started riding mountain bikes, I rode on a fully rigid mountain bike. It had rigid forks and a rigid frame. And I'd become bored. I'd actually become bored mountain biking. It wasn't offering what it had done. And what I found when I bought when I bought the gravel bike, the first gravel bike I had, it had taken me full circle. It was challenging me again. If I was taking it off road and riding technical terrain, mountain bike terrain, I was having to think and I was having to test my skills and pick my lines, and it was far more interesting. And it sort of it became fun again. Riding became fun. And particularly the riding you saw me doing in Dubai, those mountain bike tracks on a gravel bike were absolutely fantastic. And gravel bike can really do anything. And that's really why I bought a gravel bike, and then I started doing some gravel racing. And when I finished in Dubai, I went back and did some gravel races in the UK. They have one called the Grinduro, which is renowned for being quite technical and has some technical time sections. And I went back to the UK and entered this race and had, a fantastic 2 days throwing myself down the side of some Welsh mountains. And yeah, really, really good. And that sort of piqued my interest really in gravel racing. And that's how it started.
I'm just going to jump in here for a quick break from the conversation because if you have been listening for a while, you know I only share brands that I actually use and love. One of these is Code Age. They make science-backed supplements that really support active lifestyles. I have been taking their creatine gummies for recovery and strength, and the women's multivitamin for energy and immune health, especially during big training weeks. They have got everything from hydration to collagen and endurance blends, all top quality. You can get 10% off with code ZONE2SPEAK at codeage.com, and you will be supporting the podcast while you are at it. All right, back to the episode. And now you mainly riding gravel, right? I don't think I have seen you on a mountain bike.
Funnily enough, from a retired professional rider, I don't own a mountain bike at the moment. I'm actually in the process. Reilly, the company I now work for, we're developing a hardtail mountain bike, and I'm really excited because it's a big hole in my life at the moment, not having a mountain bike, and I do dream of having one again. So yeah, I'm hoping one will be around the corner and I'll have one again soon.
That'll be cool. And that's a good thing about cycling, right? You're saying you're a little bored of the mountain bike and then you got into gravel and now you're missing your mountain bike. So that's the cool thing about cycling. You can really do many different things. You can do road, gravel, mountain bike, or just get an electric bike and ride around the coast.
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, I'll ride anything. If somebody gives me something with 2 wheels, 3 wheels, I don't care, I'll ride it. And I love riding off road. I ride a road bike and I work on a road bike guiding and things, and I've done some road races, but actually I enjoy being in the countryside, and it allows me to see things that I wouldn't necessarily see if I was driving a car or riding a road bike. This weekend I've ridden through the most amazing frozen forests. I've seen the most amazing animals. I'm lucky I live on the edge of a safari park, and I've seen the giraffe pens in the snow yesterday, and I was up on Salisbury Plain, which I know you've ridden on. I'm really lucky where I live, that I can be on the coast, I can be in the hills. I just don't have any mountains, but whereas a road bike, it was so icy this weekend, I couldn't have gone out on a road bike. So I'm happy, a mountain bike or a gravel bike were perfect for this weekend. And, I haven't got a problem with an electric bike either. I bought one for my father and he got the fittest he ever got on an e-bike. So, yeah, I've got lots of time for electric bikes too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I love riding on the countryside, not just because of the nature and the animals that you can see, but also because it's just safer because there's no traffic or very little traffic.
Yeah.
And also the electric bike, some people are like, oh, e-bikes. And I'm like, don't complain. I mean, how great other people can also join in and be out and move their bodies. I think it's a great solution, for so many people.
I've been using e-bikes recently to find trails. So I've been scouting gravel routes.
Good idea.
Yeah, we've got a Cranbourne Chase. It's a big sort of line of hills all the way down to the coast. And we have countless bridleways and byways and paths that are overgrown, really. And quite often on a gravel bike, you can ride into a valley and it can be a dead end, and then you have to ride out, and then you have to find somewhere else to go to map a route. Whereas if I use an e-bike and I borrow an e-bike, I'll go and do my route sort of checking on the e-bike because it's quicker. It's, you can be from A to B very quickly and check routes a lot easier on an e-bike. So I've been using that a lot in the last summer to find routes.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. I think it's multi-purpose. An e-bike, could be older people or people that aren't as fit or aren't as brave, and then it's just a starting point. And also like you, just being faster for certain things and then go on your regular bike.
But
Why not?
you also know, if you've done a really, really big ride, say you've been away you've done an ultra or something, and you've got home, and then you've got 2 days left, but your legs are tired. You don't want to be, putting your legs under any more stress. But you can go out on an e-bike and just turn your legs over and spin along, and still get out for a great ride with minimal effort. And on the opposite side of that, on the flip of that, is that you can actually turn the motor off and get a really good training session with the motor off, because the bikes are a lot heavier.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And speaking of bikes, you mentioned Reilly. You are an ambassador for their brand, Reilly Titanium bikes. You're also ambassador for POC, Panaracer, all companies known for performance and durability. Which gear has been most essential to you, to your riding in the recent years, and why those partnerships feel aligned with who you are as an athlete?
Well, I think you've just mentioned them, POC. I started with POC probably around about 17 years ago, when I was living in the Alps. The ski school I was working for used POC equipment, and we were given POC ski helmets. I was still racing mountain bikes then, and they then offered to support me for the following season. Right? That sort of relationship I've had with POC ever since, and I love the equipment. I love their whole ethos, their safety. They do a lot of research into safety of helmets and crash impact testing. And durability, and I think they're second to none at the moment with what they're doing with the helmets. I feel secure in them. I love the colours. I love the bright orange. I think that stands out. POC and known for orange colours. I've always worn a orange helmet because I think it, a car will see it. So yeah, I've been with POC probably the longest, along with Physic and Crank Brothers pedals. I used those when I was racing downhill, and I'm still using them. And Physique shoes. Hannah from Physique has been supporting me for a long time.
Physique is coming up with a lot of cool stuff, like their new shoes.
Yeah. Well, they're doing a wide fitting now as well. I've got hobbit feet, very wide feet. I might be short, but I've got very, very wide feet. And yeah, they're not hairy, but they're wide. And now they've got a wide last in their shoes, and they're brilliant. They're so much. Well, they were comfortable before, but they're even more comfortable now for my wide feet. So and they're doing gravel. They're doing some great colours. There's some great gravel shoes, hot weather shoes for cold weather. I mean, I've been riding their boots this weekend because it's so cold. Yeah, Panaracer I've been with for 4 or 5 years, helping them with their gravel tyres. They do a great range of tyres, and obviously Reilly, that I now work for, which is a strange one really, because I didn't have a titanium gravel bike. I started on an aluminium gravel bike that I bought, and I did an event in Portugal just before I came to Dubai actually, and it was a 3-day event. And on the last day, I was coming in on a cobbled street, and somebody stepped in front of me, and I came off trying to avoid them, and I broke my wrist and my hand. But somebody in the race, I just had to finish the race. So somebody loaned me a gravel bike because I cracked my frame, and it was a Reilly Titanium gravel bike. So I rode it to the finish and finished the event. And I just posted something on social saying, wow, first titanium bike I've ever ridden, and I'm blown away. And they were kind enough to get in touch and offer me a bike for Dubai. And that was the bike I had in Dubai, and I've been on their bikes ever since. And now I'm actually working for them. So yeah, it's gone full circle.
Yeah, amazing. What a great story. Not about your hands and wrists, obviously. That's awful.
It's the nature of cycling. Some people break collarbones. I break wrists. So yeah.
Broke my left hand once on a crash as well in 2020. So Not fun. Was not fun. I also lost a tooth. So,
Yeah. So now I
um,
work for Reilly,
anyways,
helping.
yeah, it happens. Yeah, tell me about Riley.
Yeah, so obviously I rode their bike in Dubai, and when I came back, I didn't have a job when I came back. I was doing some coaching and writing some training plans, but it was actually, yeah, it was quite quiet time, and I was traveling up and down. Obviously, I was doing some racing on the Riley, and they offered me sort of a part-time job, actually helping with some events and going to see dealers who were stocking the bikes.
Okay.
And it's sort of it's progressed from being, a couple of days a week to now I'm full time working in B2B. So I'm working with shops and dealers and events, promoting the bikes, supporting shops all around the world. And then aside from that, representing Reilly at events that I'm racing in. And then, I've got some big events this year that I'll be representing up Reilly at as well.
Very nice. Very, very cool. You came full circle and now you work with them and it's a brand that you love. It's a bike that you love. Couldn't ask for something better than being an athlete and continue to reinvent yourself and stay in the industry. And you do it with so much joy. I love every time I bump into you in any of those events. So
Well,
they are lucky to have you.
you've just got to love what you do, and I think then it rubs off, doesn't it? If you genuinely love something, then you can't fail to persuade people to try a product or ride a product. And I genuinely, those products we've just been talking about, they're all brands that have supported me, but also I'm passionate about them as well. And it just happens that I'm now doing some work with POC as well, and obviously with Reilly. And yeah, I'm really happy to give something back.
Yeah, very cool. Um, so you've been in the cycling world for a long time. You have witnessed firsthand how women's cycling has changed over the years. Representation, community, and visibility have grown, but there's still work to be done. What shifts have you noticed in women's cycling, and what progress still excites or motivates you?
I think the biggest shift is purely the number of women now riding bikes from 30 years ago. I mean, when I started riding, in a World Cup, you would have 30 women and 200 men. Now they regularly have bigger numbers. There's equal numbers in cross country, and also the money in women's sport. There's parity now in a lot of disciplines. Whereas when I was racing in a World Cup, the men were getting a lot more than the women in terms of sponsorship, so salaries, but also prize money. And now that's equal. And I also think ethnic groups. We're seeing far more um, diverse groups cycling. So I'm working with some um, Muslim women in London, cycling sisters, who, for many years, and you would know that having been in Dubai, how difficult it was for Muslim women to ride a bike. And now,
Yeah.
you'll see these girls are out and they're riding and they're taking part in events. And actually, we've got, Muslim women in the World Tour, and lots of other religions in the World Tour. And I just think that that's fantastic. Seeing that over the last few years, particularly. And I just think the visibility of women's sport is greater now too. You're getting equal coverage on the women's Tour de Femme avec Swift, and in the Olympics, women are getting equal coverage with their football, the rugby, the cricket. It's really exciting. I wish I was 15 again and about to start, because but there's still a long way to go. On the flip of that, there is a long way to go. There's still there's all sorts of problems in other sports, but eventually, hopefully, everybody will be equal.
Yeah, yeah. There is still a lot of progress to be made, but it's good to see some progress and having a more quote unquote colorful peloton everywhere, in all type of
Mm.
disciplines of cycling.
Yeah, that is exactly right. I think it will take a time, um, you know, it, but it's it's progress. There wasn't progress 20 years ago, and now there is. There was everybody dreamt of having a women's tour, and now we've got one. And you only had to see the number of women on Alpe d'Huez 2 years ago and Madeleine last year. Absolutely incredible. And hopefully it'll be even better this year.
I think the women's are more exciting than the men's a lot of times, and I think there's a lot more people tuning in as well and seeing how exciting and engaging it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think partly because the racing is shorter. I think men's racing is too long. You have a transition stage of 220 kilometres flat, and the last 5 minutes are the interesting part of the race. Whereas the women's racing is 120k, and it's balls out from the start. It's flat out proper racing, and so that's far more appealing to watch. And there's colourful characters in the peloton. Yeah, it's far better. It's only 2 weeks, or it's a week's racing for the women. So they don't have these flat, boring stages. And there's a lot to be said for that. I think the men could, take a leaf out of the women's book in that sense.
Yeah, very good point.
Well, I'll be there.
How about you? You mentioned you're you're very competitive, but I think now you've been racing more for fun, for social. What does racing mean to you today? Has the purpose or feeling behind it changed over time? You still competitive, or is it just for fun, as I think it is, but maybe it's not?
I am still competitive, but I'm realizing that the body is less willing to be competitive. So best will in the world, I'm never going to win the UCI World Gravel Race in my age group. I'm not a road racer. I don't weigh 54
Never
kilograms.
say never.
Well, I don't think I'm exactly the build. It's like road racing now. That's the sad thing with the sort of gravel racing, the UCI standard gravel racing that I've been racing last year and the year before. It's incredibly smooth, untechnical, uninspiring courses, and it's road race tactics. So I don't feel competitive, or I can be competitive in that. I think I can aim for a position in the top 20 or a position in the top 30, and that would be how competitive I would be, I guess, in that. So next year I'm looking at more ultra type racing and just being competitive with myself rather than everybody around me. So example, Badlands trying to make the cut. I'm doing Unbound. I just want to finish it. Those kind of that kind of competitive.
That would be exciting to go to Unbound.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I want to get the Reilly on the American scene and people seeing it. So yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, and you were talking about how your evolution and how you're still competitive, but your strong points. Not many athletes stay competitive and excited for as long as you have. It takes adaptability and deep love for movement. What has been the key to your longevity? How do you take care of your body and your mind to keep showing up at such a high level?
I think I simply love what I do. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing it. But then also, I want to stay fit. I want to stay healthy. Cycling allows me, it allows me to stay fit. There's a sort of the trade-off, if you like. If I go and ride for 4 hours on Saturday, I might put a few extra days on my life when I get to 90 or something. And so I think I'll always be active purely just to stay healthy and fit. I'm hyperactive. I can't sit still, and that's never going to change. I just need to do some stretching, and I do need to go and do some strength and conditioning because I've been very lax at that. So that's one of my resolutions for this year is to actually do a bit of stretching.
I think most of cyclists are always trying to work on their mobility.
I fully
I'm also
agree.
trying, even if it's just 5 minutes, I'm trying every day to do something.
That's the idea. I mean, I've got bad knees anyway, so I will be doing some stretching tonight, and I will start properly tomorrow. This is what I keep saying, but yeah, no. In all seriousness, um, I love riding bikes. I love sport. If I'm not doing it, I'm watching it or reading about it. Any sports. I hate sitting in front of a TV. I get bored sat in front of a computer. I've just got to be active and I've got to be outside. So as long as I can keep doing that, I'll be happy.
And what's next for you? You did say you're going to Unbound this year. Is there any other adventures or chapters ahead that you can share?
Yeah, I'm actually going to Morocco next week. I'm going out to look at some trails for a women's camp in Morocco. There's some friends of mine are going to run some trips to Morocco, and so I'm going out with them to look at the skill level required for these trips, and I'm going to try and advise them on what's suitable for people who've maybe not done much gravel riding before or mountain biking before. So I'm going out there for 4 days, and then what have I got? I've got some weekend gravel rides and obviously training. But I think my first big event is I'm going to do the Southern Divide, which is a ride up from Land's End to Gravesend, bikepacking event. It looks beautiful, the route, and it's off-road. So that's my first event. Then I've got the Gralloch, which is a gravel race, and Battle on the Beach. And then Dirty Reaver, which is another big gravel event in the UK. And then I go out to Unbound. And then I shall be working on the Tour de France because I do some guiding work for an Australian company and the Tour de Femme. So I'll go out there and I ride bits of the route each day with some clients. And the same for the Tour de Femme. And then I'm back and I've got Badlands at the start of September.
Busy, busy, busy. The way you like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all a bit daunting always when you look in your diary, but yeah, it's just fitting everything in around the training and yeah, the events and things. You do have to work sometimes.
Hopefully, we'll find some time to meet up and ride together this year. It was such a treat to see you last year at Stone Gravel.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing your story and thank you for inspiring so many of us. Yeah, I can't wait to see where your wheels take you next, how you do in Unbound and all these other events you have.
But yeah, well, likewise, if you're in the UK or anybody wants to come and ride, I'm always happy to ride with anybody. So you can find me on Instagram or Facebook or something like that. I'd love people to ride with. Somerset's beautiful. And likewise, Juliana, if you're over here, then shout and we'll get some riding in, or I'll come over to Spain and ride with you at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll let you know. And you're always welcome here in Spain. So just let me know. And I will share with everyone. Just check on the episode description all the information where you can find Petra. Thank you, Petra.
Thank you very much.
And that's all for today's episode. I want to thank the listeners for tuning in. Your support means everything. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends.